Welcome to part 2 of a 3-part community redraw for the storyline Terminax Invasion Overkill. The first episode of this series, I took subscriber-submitted famous monsters that were turned into xenomorphs and added them into the story. Today is famous street-level superheroes turned into bounty hunters. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. Aviva stumbled as she ran, carrying the cage with the baby Ketovadis. She was doing all she could to keep it steady, but her hands were shaking, hearing the tram in the distance behind her being torn to shreds by what Bustar called the Skull Xenofiend. "Pick it up, Orvad!" Bustar yelled from farther up the glass tunnel. She heard and felt a stomp, knowing the creature had gotten into the tunnel, but not wanting to look back for any sign of it. They'd made it a fair distance towards Azimuth's office, but she had no idea how fast the Xenofiend could move. It was too tight of a space for it to fly in here, but she had a hunch it could still move pretty quickly on its feet. Bustar yelled, "Vada, slow it down!" The Ketovadis turned and sprang back, almost as if it was running towards Aviva. She almost instinctively dropped the cage and leapt to the ground to cover her head. The beast did slow as it moved next to her. It leered at her briefly, but then purred at the cage in her hand. The creature inside let out a surprisingly adorable set of yips. Then, its father charged past Aviva down the tunnel back towards the security building. Aviva continued on running. Azimuth had gone on ahead, but Bustar seemed to slow down slightly for her to catch up, though he didn't admit that's what he'd done. As they kept moving, he snarled, "So, any idea how Overkill used you to get into our security? And remember, lying ain't in your best interest here." Aviva shook her head. "No, I swear I have no idea. Besides my brother Gorlin, nobody in my family even speaks to me since I told them I didn't want to be a huntsman anymore." "Well, think. There's no way they're getting through Ishkonian security without someone on the inside, and clearly they got you on the inside, so how'd they use you, huh?" Aviva racked her brain. I really don't know. Gorlin called me this morning after I got through security at the shuttle station to warn me that my grandpa had hired Overkill to break in here and steal the Ketovadis, but that... She trailed off, thinking about the conversation she'd had with him. Bustar clearly noticed her hesitation. "If you got something, spit it out, Orvad." I don't know if it's anything, but he called me by my full name, Evivaria. I didn't really think much about it, but I don't think he's ever called me by my full name. Before Aviva could get farther down that train of thought, there was a set of popping sounds up ahead of them in the tunnel. Suddenly, a plume of green smoke shot towards them. They were both quickly enveloped in it. Aviva couldn't see anything. Her eyes got watery and she coughed, but she held tight to the cage. The offspring suddenly started bounding off the walls inside, as if it wanted to get out and run around. She kept hold of it and called, "Bustar?" He called back, "Keep moving, we've got it." There was a loud clang ahead of her. Suddenly, Bustar flopped to the ground next to her, and a red baton clattered to the ground, before hovering up then soaring back in the direction they were headed. Bustar was up quickly. He yelled, "Azimuth, fall back!" They heard no response. Aviva couldn't see more than a foot in front of her face, so when a red Eskrima stick shot right towards her, she couldn't see it until it was snatched out of the air right in front of her by Bustar. He pulled it towards himself and stared at it. He smelled it, and it yanked back towards where it had come from, but he held it tight. "That you, Han? Gonna need more than a stick and some smoke to take me down." A wave of air suddenly burst into Aviva and Bustar's faces. Some of the smoke cleared as they saw a winged being clad in red landing in front of them. He had large bat-like ears, and despite no longer being dressed in shuttle security attire, Aviva instantly recognized him. He grinned with a fanged mouth. "Oh, you're not going toe-to-toe with Overkill yet. You've got to earn that right." The figure leapt up into the air and vanished into the smoke again. Bustar still held tight to his stick, but soon another shot through the smoke and smacked Bustar in the head, making him drop it. Both then shot back out into the smoke. Bustar was looking around, as if he could see through the green clouds around them. Before he got sight of anything, his ear twitched and he turned back. "Great, we're out of time." Aviva didn't know what he was hearing, but he suddenly snatched her up off the ground and started running faster than she'd been able to move on her own. The red stick soared through the air towards Bustar again. He managed to duck under one and another smacked his shoulder, knocking him off course slightly, but he managed to regain balance and keep moving forward. Aviva said, That That guy, I recognize him. He was working as a security guard at the shuttle station this morning. He brought out the inhibitor bands that they put on me to keep me from using these on the shuttle. She lifted one arm away from the cage, now held on her stomach while she was being carried, and let a blade pop out of her forearm. The second she did, it sliced through one of the sticks, soaring towards Bustar again, and split it in half. Nice block, he muttered. She didn't say it had been accidental. Bustar then said, "They must have snuck some kind of virus for the security systems into the tech in your arms using the inhibitors. They used you like a pack mule. Might not have even been your brother who warned you about Overkill. They might have just used tech to make it look and sound like him. Was it his idea to go to the security office?" Yeah, it was. Aviva hated how much sense that made. Her family had to know her brother still spoke to her. All they'd need to do is get their hands on his comm disc, then use some fairly common identity cloaking tech to make it seem like she was talking to him, when it was really her mom or dad or grandpa. Bustar nodded, then ducked under another soaring stick. They must have needed you in the main security office for the virus to work. Still nuts that they managed to make tech that could shut down the planet's outer ring security, but it's tough to put anything past Overkill. Aviva felt sick. Overkill had used her, and now, who knows how many of the animals here had already been blown up because of her. Aviva and Bustar finally got out of the smoke enough to see ahead of them was an opening in the tunnel. They'd made it to the research and development station with a 7-story gold and silver building. Unfortunately, waiting in the tunnel ahead of them, with Azimuth laying unconscious at his feet, was a yellow and green-clad being with a mechanical arm. He clenched his fist, and it lit up in bubbling yellow light. Bustar set Aviva down. "Whatever you did to Azimuth, I'm doing to you 80 times over, skleebag." Aviva was focused on the man ahead until she heard the familiar tearing of claws against the ground behind her. Before she could even turn, soaring over her head came the Ketovadus, with the winged red-clad hunter impaled on the end of its tail. It whipped him around and hurled him right into the wall. He smashed against it and left a splatter of blood as he slid down the glass to the ground. For the first time, Aviva was slightly relieved to see the Ketovadus, but Bustar wasn't so glad. "No matter what you do, Orvad, keep moving and don't let anyone take that cage." A thundering shriek suddenly roared up from behind them. It was forceful enough to clear away the smoke. Aviva looked back and saw the sparking, skeletal xenomorph stomping towards them. She didn't even hesitate. She sprinted forwards right towards the glowing-fisted hunter. Before she could get close, the Ketovadus leapt towards him. Astoundingly, the hunter swung his metal fist, hit the beast out of the air, and actually managed to send it hurtling into the tunnel wall. Luckily, that had distracted him enough for Aviva to get past him to the end of the tunnel. She leapt up onto the ground next to the tram tracks and headed towards the building. Bustar had his staff weapon out and shot a beam of flames from it at the glowing-fisted hunter. He leapt over it with surprising grace, then kicked off the tunnel wall towards Bustar, swinging his fist at him. Terminax ducked under the swing and crammed the butt end of his staff into the hunter. A surge of electricity sparked from it and shocked the man, but he still managed to flip over and land on his feet. Before either of them could swing at each other again, the Skull Xenofiend shrieked and a shockwave of electricity burst off it, filling the tunnel. Bustar ducked down to Azimuth and held a button on his staff. It absorbed some of the electricity around him and his ally, diminishing the impact on their bodies. The hunter was not so lucky. The shock was enough to make him writhe in pain. Meanwhile, the Ketovadus was completely unaffected by the electricity. It ran out of the tunnel towards Aviva. She once again saw flashes of the first day she'd seen it and was terrified. It got close but leapt right over her head. She watched it go as it snatched a glowing red blade out of the air above her. It landed on the ground and yanked the weapon down. It was attached by a long glowing string to someone she hadn't noticed on the top of the building. He was pulled off the roof but managed to tear his weapon back out of the Ketovadus' teeth and hurl it back through a window. It latched onto a wall and he used it to swing safely down to the ground. He yanked the weapon back down, then pulled a gun off his leg and started firing red bolts of energy towards the Ketovadus. The creature let the first few hit it, but then seemed surprised that the bolts actually burned holes in its flesh. After that, it started dodging the shots. After seeing the Ketovadus actually get hurt, the offspring started tackling its tiny body against the cage, making it hard for Aviva to hold. It was clearly trying to escape to help its father. Aviva knew she had to do something to help. She did know how to fight from her years as a huntsman, but if she kept carrying this cage around, she was useless. Before she could make any decisions, Bustar rolled across the ground next to her with 3 massive slashes across the front of his suit, one of them having carved right through to his chest. He stood up quickly, ignoring his injury as best he could. He looked back to see the hooded hunter firing at and avoiding swipes from the Ketovadis. Aviva then turned back to the glowing-fisted hunter, who'd recovered from the electricity and was taking a swing at the Xenofiend's head as it lunged down to snap him up in its jaws. He struck it so hard that a shockwave burst off the impact and nearly pushed Aviva backwards. The Xenofiend's head shot back and smashed into the wall of the tunnel. But before it even recovered from that, its tail swung up from behind it and slashed right through the hunter's arm. His metal hand flew off him and dropped next to Aviva. Bustar whipped around and hurled his staff full force at the hooded hunter. It struck the gun from his hand, but Bustar didn't even give the Ketovadis a chance to attack its foe. "Vada, get Azimuth inside!" The creature snarled but sprinted towards the Xenofiend as its head was lurching down towards Azimuth. The hooded hunter pulled the sword off his back and swung his roped weapon in his other hand. Walking towards Bustar, he said, "Heard a lot about you from Overkill, Terminax. Don't think killing you will be more impressive than when I took down the one who laughs, but might make my name a little more known." Bustar glanced down at his wound, clearly trying to hide that it actually hurt. Aviva had no idea what to do. She just muttered, "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. If I hadn't—" "Hey!" Bustar interrupted her, tapping some tech attached to his ear. "Apologizing does nothing now. Acting does." He pulled the tech off his ear and stuck it onto hers. "Azimuth is out, but Ship will talk you through getting the prototype activated. Do that and keep the offspring safe. Shut out what happened and focus on what you can do now." He tapped a piece of tech on his forearm and his staff flew back towards him, just as the Ketovadis leapt past him carrying Azimuth in its tail, and a surge of lightning pulsed off the Xenofiend towards them. Bustar grabbed Aviva and the staff absorbed most of the electricity once again. Aviva's body tightened and felt hot, but it was tolerable pain before the shock faded. He pointed towards the building. "Go!" Aviva was astounded that he was trusting her to leave his sight with the offspring, but if he was trusting her, she knew she had to prove he was right to. She ran right towards the doorway, despite one of the hunters being in her path. Thankfully, he had to leap out of the way of the Ketovadis as it tackled through the doorway to get inside. Aviva was close behind it, headed for the doors, when the hunter set his sights on her. Thankfully, before he could make a move, a beam of lightning shot at him from Bustar's staff. He had to leap out of the way, and Aviva charged into the now smashed open doors. The Ketovadis lay Azimuth down under a large table, then turned back to her, eyeing its young. Aviva wasn't sure what to do next, but then a very chipper voice spoke into her earpiece.
"Hello, Ms. Orvad. It is nice to communicate with you under circumstances where Bustar is not attempting to mercilessly kill you."
Aviva recognized the voice as the AI in Bustar's ship. She responded, Hi, so, what is this prototype Bustar needs me to activate?"
"It is both a weapon for Bustar to use in dire circumstances and a new vessel that I will be able to use to assist him in conflicts and on field missions. It is on the 4th floor in room 444. I recommend taking the stairs as the power remaining active to the elevators is currently unreliable."
Aviva nodded and headed towards the stairs, but was very uncomfortable as the Ketovadis marched along next to her, still staring at its young. Thankfully, there was a whistle from outside, and it instantly sprinted back out the doors to help Bustar. As she headed up the stairs, she muttered, "That thing really freaks me out." Ship replied,
"That is entirely understandable considering the traumatic event Bustar put you through when you came onto his ship. I would like to apologize for the part I played in that event. While I am glad Bustar prevented you and your allies from stealing the Ketovadis, I do strongly believe he took things too far, and made sure to tell him as much when the event had concluded."
Aviva reached the 2nd floor and kept moving as fast as she could. "It's fine. I mean, it was terrible, but we were trying to steal that animal from him to sell off or kill. Honestly, I'm surprised he's even trusting me at all to help with this."
"Well, of course he is. It was on Bustar's recommendation that you were able to get this job opportunity in the first place."
Aviva stopped in her tracks. "Wait, what?" Ship responded pleasantly.
"Please keep moving if you are able, but yes, he had logged the incident with you and was informed when you applied to this position. He vouched for your bravery when you protected your brother on that night. Bustar may have a strong disdain for poachers, but he has a soft spot for poachers who have chosen to turn their lives around and are attempting to be better than they once were. He was once a poacher himself and made the difficult decision to tell people in his life that he wanted to change too. It lost him every friend he had. The fact that you were evidently willing to do the same impressed him. While he is not likely to openly admit it, Bustar has been rooting for you through the entire employment application process.
Aviva kept moving up the stairs, but was totally shaken. Bustar was rooting for her? He'd actually helped her? And now, on her first day, she brought in a virus that allowed the first break-in incident in the preservation's history. That just made her feel even more horrible. Suddenly, she heard the creature in the cage she carried purring softly. She looked down and saw it looking up at her sympathetically. It was rubbing its head against the glass as if trying to soothe her, sensing her guilt and distress. It actually looked kind of adorable doing that, despite being a little Ketovadis. "Well," she said, continuing up to the 4th floor, "if he believes in me, then I guess I'd better start believing in me too. Let's get this prototype activated." She tackled through door 444 and saw a room full of various papers, computers, and tools. At the opposite end was a large steel cabinet with a numbered keypad on it. Ship said,
"That is the prototype's housing. Please go activate it using the following passkey."
Before Ship finished speaking, there was a series of firework-like colorful explosions lighting up outside the building, making the entire structure quake. The glass of the windows shattered and smoke billowed into the room. Aviva waved it out of her face and ran over to the windows. She looked down to see Bustar tied up on his knees, bound in the glowing red wire of the hooded hunter standing next to him. The Xenofiend, astoundingly, was riddled with holes and was leaking acid blood everywhere as it crashed to the ground, with a hyena-headed maniac leaping off its back to land gracefully next to Bustar with his arms raised. The Ketovadis was even pinned to the ground, held in place by 4 large metal staples clamping over its body into the cement beneath it. Overkill leaned down next to Bustar.
Hey, Busty, it's good to see ya. But really thought you'd put up a bit more of a fight there, brother.
Bustar kicked off his knees and bit right into Overkill's shoulder.
Oh, yeah, that's the Busty I know, but let's see who's got the toughest chompers, huh?
He cackled, then chomped his own teeth into Bustar's shoulder. After a few seconds, Bustar yelled out in pain, releasing his bite. Overkill used his teeth to hurl Bustar to the ground, then stomped on his back, pinning him down.
Now, getting you and the Ketovadis is great and all. Dropping another dozen bombs just to send a message on the way out is all good too, but I hear talk that there may be a little Ketovadis babe running around. I was only hired to bring Big Daddy into my employers, but I'd love to have me a little kitty of my own as a trophy. Maybe if you tell me where I can find it, I won't tell the siblings how bad I thumped you at the next family reunion.
Aviva hadn't realized this guy actually may be Bustar's brother, but it made sense that he'd also be the son of legendary and infamous warlord Kahurgoth. She stepped back from the window, looking down at the cage in her hands. She knew Bustar would never say where the offspring was, but it was still her job to keep it safe. She turned to the steel cabinet again. She marched towards it. No matter what she had to do, she was going to prove that Bustar made the right choice in helping her. Her old life may have come back to bite her, but like Bustar, she was ready to bite back. And so we have part 2 of the 3-part story, with part 3 coming up on Friday. Thank you to everybody who submitted for this part, and special thank you to the people chosen: Spectron/RoboStitch/Robobob, Wild Howler Designs, and Esteban Loaiza. Reminder, as I said in the last episode, that the next month's community redraw is famous cartoon and animated characters turned into suits of fantasy armor. Submissions go to popcrossanimations@gmail.com. And besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And the thought I want to leave people with today is something I read this week, which was someone suggesting that you think about your life as if it were a movie, and there's an audience watching, and think about what would the audience, having watched your life story to this point, be screaming at you to be doing with your life right now? What change do you think they would be wanting to see you as a character make? Presumably it's something that you've shown a lot of interest in wanting to do, but just not yet taken a step into doing it yet. Think about what that thing is, and think about what you could do to start making that audience go, yes, they're finally doing it. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Friday. Goodbye.